What's a time when trusting your gut quite literally saved your life? Story 1. My girlfriend met up with a work friend at a bar. This girl was with a guy who gave me seriously bad vibes. He was fake friendly, but his eyes were crazy. My girlfriend didn't see it. I wasn't having it. I told her I was leaving, and she really needed to come. We fought, I left, and she came running after. The next morning, we found out the guy stabbed someone in the chest and killed the guy. I straight up said, "I told you so." He was fucking crazy. I don't know if it saved my life, but it saved me one hell of a bad time. Reply 1. Good on you for trusting your instincts and erring on the side of caution regarding your and your girlfriend's safety. Kudos to you. Story 2. My boyfriend at the time and I were house sitting for his uncle. My boyfriend was at work and I was bathing our son before bed. I had the bathroom window facing the backyard, very slightly cracked, and heard a cough from outside. Now, this was a house in a residential neighborhood, so it could have been a neighbor, but I suddenly felt anxious and scared, and something told me to go make sure the back door was locked. I left my 2-year-old son alone in a towel in the bathroom and ran to the back door. As I placed my hand on the doorknob locking it, I came face to face with someone through the glass who had his hand on the outside doorknob. He started pounding on the door and juggling the doorknob, saying he was looking for someone. And I just told him, no, they're not here. He kept jiggling the doorknob, and I ran to my son and grabbed my cell phone to call for help. Remember, I am house sitting though, and this was in 2004, 2005, when they had those flip-open phones, not a smartphone where you can just look at the map. So I had no idea what the address was or where the house phone was. Anyways, I called 911 from the bathroom on my cell while hearing loud pounding on the back door. The dispatcher tells me to find a house phone, a piece of mail, anything with an address. I locate the house phone and call 911 from that. So I have no idea how police got there so quickly, but just as I hear the back door glass break, the guy on the phone tells me to cover my son's head with a blanket and run out the front door into the back seat of the police car. I ran out the front door and saw 6 or more police cars, all with guns drawn, and straight into the waiting cruiser. After they arrested the guy, they asked me if the machete on the back porch belonged to the owners of the house. The guy had a machete, and had I not trusted my gut that the cough sounded a little too close and to check the back door, he would have walked right into an unlocked house to a 19-year-old female and a little kid alone. Turns out he had been robbing houses and had a backpack full of stolen things, and was high on something. Anyway, super glad I followed my gut on that one. Holy crap, what an intense story. I gotta say, your gut instinct is basically a superhero at this point. It's amazing how you managed to lock the door just in time. And can we talk about the police showing up like a SWAT team from a movie? That's a top-tier response time right there. Thank goodness for your intuition and the quick-acting police. Story 3. When I was in my late teens / the early 20s, I was with a girlfriend at a club, met some guys who said there was a party they were throwing. I was driving, so I figured it couldn't hurt to check it out. Get to a hotel room, and it's just us 2 girls with at least 4 guys. I already felt something bad would happen, but decided to drink as much of their booze as possible before bugging out. I remember quite vividly standing at the mini fridge, and my friend was sitting on one of those 2 beds. She was holding one beer and talking about how drunk she was. Oh my god, I'm so drunk. And no sooner than she starts saying this, these guys started moving in on her like a group of hyenas going in for the kill. I quickly knew we had to get the fuck out of there. I just walked over to her and told her I needed to talk to her outside and grabbed her by the wrist and kept walking down the stairs from the hotel door. She fought me the entire time and I had to scream at her to get in the car. By the time the guys figured out we were leaving, they were at the door of their room throwing things at my car. I know I saved my friend from gang rape, and she didn't want to leave, nor she was thankful afterwards. Story 4. I was working in a sales office at an engineering company. I was asked to record the serial numbers of a stack of large steel plates on the shop floor. I had to get someone with crane operating experience to lift the top plate so I could read the one underneath. The guy lifted it directly upwards about 6 feet. I was just about to lean underneath the plate when a little voice inside my head said, "Don't do that, mate. Get him to move the overhead plate to one side." Just as I thought that, the clamp holding the plate failed, and it fell to the ground just in front of me. It must have weighed about a ton. If it had fallen on my head, I'd have been killed instantly. Reply: yeah man, I always yell at the new guys about safety to the point that I'm annoying. I didn't think that 20-year-olds needed to be told not to run in a shop with forklifts speeding around corners, or that you shouldn't walk under a suspended load, or that you need to put the parking brake on when you're done with the forklift. Or, you get the idea. Common sense isn't common. Whoa, talk about a close call. That little voice in your head was your guardian angel in that moment, no doubt. It's a good reminder that when working with heavy machinery, it's always better to play it safe than sorry. I'm sure after this experience, you'll never underestimate the importance of listening to your instincts again. Stay safe out there, and maybe invest in some extra strength hard hats, just in case. Story 5. A few years ago, I had a rare day off work and decided to get some Christmas shopping done. It was late November, and the mall near me was having some really good sales. But as I was driving there, I started having this weird anxious feeling. The closer I got, the more anxious and uneasy I felt. So instead of going right to the mall, I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts for a drink and snack. I couldn't shake the anxiety, so I sat in the parking lot for a bit while I ate and drank. I opened up the news on my phone, and the first thing that pops up is shooting at the mall I was headed to. Obviously, I went straight home. Did all my Christmas shopping online that year. Story 6. When I was 8 years old, we had a special quiz in school. It was worth a small amount of our grade, but the rule was that we only got the points if we took it home, showed our parents, had them sign it, and returned it the next day. This was the 80s, and I'm now 99% sure it was to ding my grades in class because I aced everything but had wicked ADHD. Anyway, we lived a 40-minute drive from school because of America, and about halfway there, I started having a panic attack, and I didn't know why. We were between these two semi-trucks, a gasoline tanker and a cement truck. My mom pulled over so we could talk it out, and then I remembered my quiz. We were going to be there early, so we sped home, grabbed the quiz, and headed back to school. As we got about 2 miles past where my mom had pulled off the road to talk to me, we saw that the cement truck had rear-entered the gas tanker, which then exploded. The charred remains of both trucks, dozens of emergency vehicles of all kinds, and a huge swath of melted asphalt and burnt grass around the road told the story. Our little 1984-made subcompact would have been sandwiched right in the middle. My mom turned to me and said, "You should trust your panic attacks," which turned into a lifelong anxiety disorder. But hey, it saved me once. Story 7. I was driving home from a friend's house late one night. I was probably 16 to 17 years old and had a Mustang, so I was getting it down a back road when I heard this loud "slow down now" in my head, louder than the music I had cranked up. I immediately slowed down to well below the speed limit, and when I came around the next turn, there was a train coming across the unmarked tracks. There were warning signs about the tracks. I knew they were there as I had traveled that road many times, but there were no lights or cross arms, and I had never seen a train on those tracks before. Add that to the fact that there are woods on either side of the road, so it was almost impossible to know if a train was coming at night. Your intuition was seriously on point that night, saving you from a potentially disastrous encounter. It's like your brain had its own built-in psychic radar system, alerting you just in time to avoid the unmarked tracks. I'm glad you listened to that internal "slow down" command. It's a solid reminder for all of us to trust our instincts, especially when driving on familiar roads. Stay safe and keep listening to your gut feelings. Story 8. When I was 10, I was walking to my friend's house. A van stopped me to ask for directions to the park. A man was driving and a woman was a passenger, and she's the one who spoke to me. We had been taught in school and by my parents that adults should never ask kids for directions. In school, they told us if anyone ever stops us, take a giant step back before running away, so they can't grab us. So I take a step back and tell them I don't know where the park is. The lady said, "I can't hear you, come closer." And I knew in my gut something was wrong. Out of fear, I almost listened to her, but when the sliding door on the van started to open, and I took off running faster than I'd ever run in my life. Ran all the way to my friend's house. I told her parents everything, and they called my parents and the police. The police came to her house and talked to me and said that 2 other kids in our neighborhood reported the same van stopping and trying to talk to them. It was weird because before the van even stopped beside me, I had this sick feeling in my gut. As soon as it started rolling down the street, I knew something bad was about to happen. It was a couple of months before I had the guts to walk to my friend's house again. Story 9. It was my mom's gut feeling for me. I was always an A student, skipped a grade, good kid. She knew all of my friends. I asked to go on a small road trip with a friend my senior year to see a college, plus go to a party there the friend knew about. Mama agreed. I'd never given her trouble. Suddenly, like on Thursday or Friday before the weekend trip, she just says, "No, I don't want you to go. It doesn't feel right." I'm like, "What? Why, Mom? I want to have fun with my friends." She didn't give me any reason besides one loud and clear no. I'm so furious at her as my friend leaves, and I know she'll have so much fun with cute college boys and touring the campus. She barely made it an hour away and her car was T-boned by a truck, destroying the passenger side where I would have been and died. Reply: I've heard several stories like this where my mom's intuition saved my ass. At the time, I was so upset with her, but now, as a mother myself, I just pray I know when to trust that voice as she did. Whoa, this story gave me goosebumps. It's amazing how your mom's intuition kicked in just at the right time. She must have had a strong sense that something was off, even without knowing exactly what it was. Her determination to keep you from going on that trip really shows how powerful a parent's instinct can be. I bet you've never doubted her gut feelings since then. What a blessing that she was able to protect you from such a potentially tragic situation. Story 10. I drive the same route to work every day. There's an intersection I drive through each day that I pay particular attention to since a former neighbor of mine was killed in an accident there years back. There's a traffic light, but on one of the approaches, the road is curved, and sometimes drivers are going too fast and don't see the light in time to stop. One morning in the winter, I was waiting at a red light at the intersection. I was first in line to go. The light turned green, but I hesitated a bit before going since I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye through the bare trees. Sure enough, a couple of seconds later, a white Jeep comes flying from the left, blows the red light without even slowing down, and keeps going. If I had gone when the light turned green, I'd have been dead, just like my former neighbor. Story 11. I was having a lot of congestion and a wicked cough for like a week, to the point that my ribs hurt. My doctor thought it was just a sinus infection that was draining into my ears and chest. Finally, I called out of work one day, and my pain started to get worse. I figured it was just muscle soreness from all of the coughing I was doing, but something in my gut said to call 911. By the time the ambulance got to me a couple of minutes later, I was barely able to breathe. It turned out that I had an abscess in my lung which had ruptured. The accumulated pus and fluid had collapsed my lung, and I was in the first stages of sepsis. Story 12. I was working on an oil field company, and we were doing some maintenance on a hydraulic pump jack. I had to be lifted in a basket about 20 feet in the air by the crane I was working on and loosen a couple of nuts so we could remove a part to lift some components. Once I got up there, I took my hard hat off because it was so hot out, and I figured, hey, what could possibly drop on my head when I'm higher up than anything around me? I loosened the first nut and then thought about how mad my mom would be. She's a nurse and never really liked me working in the oil field because of how dangerous it was, so I put my hard hat back on. When I loosened the last nut, the pump jack shot up, and because the operator hadn't depressurized like he said he had, this massive nut flew straight up in the air, and before I could figure out what was happening, it landed square on my hard hat. The force made me drop to my knees. The guy operating the crane saw me drop and immediately lowered the basket to the ground. I walked away with a kink in my neck and a huge dent in my hard hat. I often think about what would have happened if I hadn't put it back on. Thanks, Mom. Oh man, that story had me sweating and laughing at the same time. I can just imagine the inner monologue. I'm up in the air, nothing can hit me now, except, wait, gravity exists. But seriously, it's a good thing your mom's voice in your head made you put that hard hat back on. That nut must have had a vendetta against you, trying to defy the laws of physics to take you down. I bet Mom was thrilled to hear her safety nagging paid off. Stay safe out there, and remember, hard hats aren't just fashionable, they're lifesavers too. Story 13. I was in high school and visiting my grandparents. My grandmother had a standard transmission pickup truck she was driving at the time. She said something was wrong with it and told my grandfather to take it to get looked at. He drove it and said nothing was wrong, but he was mostly deaf, so I was a elected to drive with him and listen to it if there were any weird sounds. There was a really loud sound from under the hood, and it freaked me out. I got the feeling something bad was going to happen, so I begged my grandfather not to drive the last 2 feet to the mechanic shop. He obliged, and the mechanic came over and drove the truck the last little way. Just as he pulled into the parking lot, something broke loose and flew up through the hood and into the passenger side of the truck seat right where I had been sitting. No doubt it would have killed me if I had still been sitting there. According to the mechanic, it was a 1 in a million occurrence. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future, and also don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, Tony's fam, peace out.